Hi, welcome to this webinar on easing back into your master's degree with Sturt University. Webinar said it would start at 12, but I had some technical difficulties, so we're 2 minutes late, but that's not so bad. Okay, to start with some housekeeping. If you've got any questions, just use the QA box at the bottom of your screen. Holly, at the bottom left or right?
Somewhere around the middle.
Somewhere around the middle, okay. You'll see it there. Even if you just want to type in a test question, the lovely Holly will try to answer your questions on the way through, so we won't stop and take questions if that's all right. She'll be available for 10 minutes after the session finishes to answer questions as well. And you'll receive an email of the recording tomorrow. We'll send out a recording, so if you need to go over any or you missed any bits. Why have we got a picture of some wine there? Well, that's wine from Sturt University's world famous School of Wine Science, and we're going to award a wine pack to the person that asked the most interesting question on the way through the session. So even if you haven't got one, try to make up an interesting question, and Holly will have a go, and she'll also decide who the winner is. Agenda. This is a special intake. We've got a couple of them a year. It's transitioning back into studies, specially designed, as you'll see, for people who haven't studied at uni for some time, may have started at uni many years ago, and either didn't complete their degree or completed their bachelor's degree, but it's a long time since they've done university study, or lo and behold, maybe never been to university, and this is going to be your first attempt. So lots of extra support for that, for this intake, as you'll see. Then we'll have a quick look at the masters that are available and talk about who the target audience are and some of the demand we're seeing in the different areas. Have a look at a couple of example subjects, and then all the general things that people are interested in, fees, study load, that type of thing. And finish off with just having a look at what a university qualification looks to be worth in terms of career earnings. There's some interesting stuff from the latest census, Australian Bureau of Statistics, that's come out on that. Transitioning back into study. Feedback from graduates, we've been running this program for 17 years, and I heard this time and time again. It's invariably, it's tough at the start, but okay, once I got settled in, particularly I got into a study pattern. And so that first subject or two is really the most difficult, and that's reflected in the amount of attrition we see. 80% of our attrition, just under 80%, happens in the first session. So more or less, if you can get through the first session, you're right. And this is just not of interest to you, but it's particularly of interest to me as a marketer, is that 55% of our new students come by the alumni. Now, it's not going to happen if people pull out in the first session. So we've definitely got a vested interest in keeping you and giving you the support to get through. How are these sessions set up? The next one, the one we're going to talk about here, which starts on the 27th of August, that actually intake closes on the 17th of August, is called Term 1. So there's that one, and there's Term 3. Actually, there's 3, there's a Term 2, but the one we're going to talk about, confusing as it is, even though we're halfway through the year, is called the Term 1 intake. The way they're set up is that you start with, as you'll see, you'll start with a single subject instead of 2, which is that they normally do. That allows you to get settled, and then halfway through the session, or a bit after that in this case, there's an overlap with the normal intakes, and you can pick up 1 or even 2 extra subjects at that time once you're settled in. So to sum that, how that works is you start with a single, and not only is it a half load, a single subject, the normal load for part-time students is 2 subjects, but you'll start with a single subject, and even better, it's a foundation level subject. So rather than launching straight into something challenging, more challenging, we'll start, everyone that starts with this intake starts with a foundation level subject. And we'll actually cover the 2 foundation level subjects that are available. And then you'll also have dedicated study support. There's Neil there, works up in the hinterland above Coffs Harbour. It's a beautiful spot. Most unfair that he's allowed to work from there. But if you talk to him and if you enrol, you will definitely be talking to him because he's a dedicated study support for these intakes. So the way that would work is you put your application in, you get passed across to Neil, and here's your one-stop shop for getting settled. No questions silly to Neil, and helping you get yourself settled and navigate around the learning management system that CSU. I mean, it's a fantastic learning management system, but there's a lot to it, and Neil will help with that. And also help you, if you need it, help you get your study plan in place. And as I showed in that document, you start with this single subject. About week 12, you then have the option of adding additional subjects, 1 or even 2 if you're going really well. And certainly Neil will be able to advise you on that, whether that's a good idea or not. Which masters? We've got 7 available under this group, under these intakes. I've grouped them into 2 groups there. The first group is management type masters, and the second group is technical type masters, but all to do with IT. Even the project management is IT project management. Very, very popular, by the way, project management. Lots of jobs out there if you can stand the stress in that area, and they're very well paid. We've got 3 available there. Master of Project Manager, that's pretty obvious. People that are either maybe working in a project team or interested in moving into project management, or already a project manager and want to add a master's to their resume. And I'll show you later on a reason why they might want to do that. And then we've got 2 management ones. The first, Master of Management Information Technology, is for people in IT supervisory positions or going into supervisory positions. And what's different about that, it has a wide range of specializations. I think there's 7 off the top of my mind. So you do the Master of Managed Information Technology, and if you want to do cybersecurity or virtualization or systems administration, there's different specializations. So you would do 4 out of the 12 subjects in a specific area, and that would be then on your graduation testimonial. And the MBA computing is for senior executive level type IT management positions. If you haven't got one, they're almost essential to get into those areas. It certainly was and still happening in terms of the recruitment people would like to see. If you don't, especially if you don't have a bachelor's degree, would like to see a degree on your resume when applying for those type of positions. And then we get into some say the more interesting ones, but the technology-based ones. Well, the one that's going absolutely gangbusters is a Master of Cybersecurity. I mean, I saw this morning the latest Seek job stats, and it is skyrocketed up into the top 12 paying of all employment areas, all job roles. And by the way, IT, since the last one in 2013, has really just taken over from mining. It's amazing how it's dominating the top paying position. So a great time to have a career in IT. So we've got 2 there. We've got cybersecurity. That is full on cybersecurity. Every subject dedicated to interesting things like the dark web, penetration, testing, cybersecurity, terrorism, absolutely fascinating stuff there. But if you're not going to be full on cybersecurity and you're still going to have some management responsibilities, have a good look at the Master of Information System Security. So that's a type of half and half, or a bit over half cybersecurity, and the rest having a range of management type subjects for you. And then we've got a couple of others, Master of Cloud Computing and Virtualization, which was introduced last year. It's been reasonable numbers, not the numbers we'd hoped, but numbers are reasonable on it. And the one we started with way back in 2003, the Master of Networking and Systems Administration. It's been our main masters for a long time. People say with the cloud, are we going to need sysadmins? Well, yes, we are. We're always going to need sysadmins. They're always in demand. So, as I said, a very popular masters. Just a couple of example subjects. These are the 2 subjects available in this intake. These are the foundation level ones I mentioned, and you would be doing a single one. Now, if you're doing the management type masters, All of them have this subject either available as core or as an elective. It's the Project Life Cycle MGI 512. Approximately half of our subjects help you prepare for certification while you're studying for your subject. So this one is for Prince 2, which is after the Project Management Institute PMP, Project Management Professional, is the most in demand of industry certs. So this subject would help you prepare for Prince 2 certification. By the way, if you've already got Prince 2 certification at the second level, I forget what it's called, not the basic level, you would be up for credit for that subject. So we don't make you study it again. There's the learning objectives. And how is it assessed? Everyone seems to jump on, well, how is it? Fair enough. This one's got 3 assessments. They vary. We try to vary it across the different subjects to make them different. It has an online article summary, which is a simpler assessment early on in the subject, and it really is designed to get you started with the whole assessment and also alert us if you're struggling. Although in your case, for this intake, Neil would be well aware of that as well if you'd be talking to him about how you're going. Later on in the session, which by the way, 14, 15 weeks they are about halfway, a bit over, you would have an online exam, the sit at home online exam. This again, it's based on the Prince 2 certification, so similar type questions in there to help you prepare for that certification if you choose to pursue it. We don't make you sit it as part of the subject, but I certainly would encourage you to have a look at it. Good to have on your resume. So multiple choice and some short answer stuff, but the multiple choice are based around the Prince 2. So that's assessment 2. And then a big meaty proposal at the end on the project life cycle, which, as you can see by the weighting there, 50% of your mark is easily the biggest assignment that you do during it. You know, it's a good example that I think the industry certifications are fantastic, but you can only test so much in a multi-choice exam, and that third assessment is a good example of how and how we can take you much further, and we do. Things like select 2 principles of Prince 2 and explain to the board, this is a fictional board, why and how these 2 principles will significantly contribute to project success. Now that's pretty hard to test in a multi-choice exam, but we certainly can and do have a look at that type of thing in your assessments. And then have a look at the technical one. So remember we had the management masters and then we had the technical masters. Every single technical masters has cybersecurity in it. But the fundamental subject is either an elective or a core in all of them. And as you'd imagine these days, you can't ignore cybersecurity, no matter what area of tech, IT tech you're working in. So this one prepares you for the CompTIA Security Plus certification. It's a foundation level certification. Very popular, the CompTIA certifications. But again, I emphasize it's a foundation, as you imagine by the word fundamentals. It's designed for you to do this and build your core base knowledge before moving into the more complex subjects. So works perfectly for this intake. Again, if you're a person easing back into study. Covers all the major, there's a fair bit in it, but not in a great depth. We do that later on, go into these in more detail, but this is a broad brush security base. If you're sitting there and you're thinking of doing cybersecurity and you don't have a background in cybersecurity, this is obviously a subject you would start with, but also and Neil would talk to you about this, you'd need to do some networking studies as well, like sysadmin type stuff. How do we assess that subject? Again, 3 assessments. Lab exercises to start off with. So these are hands-on. Again, self-marking, you'll be doing some cybersecurity exercises on some online labs. Then you do the case study. It's a bit different than the other subject. Case study comes as a middle assessment. Having a look at security plan for a company. And then you've got your final exam, and the final exam is a mixture of multi-choice and short answer type questions. The multi-choice questions are based around the CompTIA Security Plus certification. So again, we're doing two things here. We're helping you prepare for the certification if you wish to pursue it later on. Obviously doing our final assessment and assessing quite a bit more because we can in the final assessment. Again, if you've got the CompTIA Security Plus certification, you'd be up for credit for that subject. How much work is it going to be? Well, depends on your experience level. If you're doing the foundations of cybersecurity and you've got years of experience in it, you're obviously not going to have to do nearly as much work as someone who's looking at it as a career swap option, for instance. They're going to have to work a lot harder. The university requires me to tell you for postgraduate, you need to think about 6 to 12 hours per subject per week. Talking to graduates, that sounds a bit high. Probably 6 to 8 to 10 is more likely. And again, this is the type of thing you discuss with Neil. You know, the keys to this is to get a certain time set aside for your core study, particularly. At different times you have to do more and less, but have 1 or 2 nights that everyone knows you're doing your study, and he'll definitely talk to you about that. But we're very flexible. 26,000 distance ed students, you learn to be flexible because they've got other things happening in their lives. So it's okay to drop back to one subject. Well, you'll already be doing one subject, but you can also take leave. And we've had a couple do that in the last one. Neil talked to them and said, yep, look, this has happened, that's happened. I think you better just take leave and then we'll come back next session and start again. That's definitely okay, providing you do it within 4 weeks of starting. That's called census. And if you do it within 4 weeks of starting the subject, you don't have to pay for the subject, and you just retain your materials and restudy it later on. If it's past that date, you need to continue on and finish the subject. Fees are $32.50 per subject. There is up to 12 subjects depending on credit per course, and the recommended duration for part-time people is 2 years. On average, they take about 2.5. We've had people finish in a year, especially with a lot of credit, but 2.5 is about something about an average. You've got to pay that at the beginning of every study session. Providing it's applicable to your career, it would be tax deductible, and obviously GST exempt. It includes everything you need: textbooks, which are mostly electronic these days, study guides, e-learning. There's nothing else. In fact, we tell you not to get anything else because you'll be busy enough. And as I mentioned, census, don't forget it. You'll get an email about it, reminding you that census is about to happen if you need to pull out. Most people, virtually everyone, Australian citizens, uses fee help to pay for that. It'd be a bit silly not to, really. It's a government study loan, interest-free. Covers all your fees, and the way it works is when you apply, they say, oh, yep, you're in. How do you want to pay for it? You just say, I'd like to use fee help, please, and the government then pays the university, Charles Sturt University, on your behalf. And just a word of warning, we get a number of people coming back about this. Is the tax accountants tell them that there's a loan fee, or they tell them it's not tax deductible. Well, they get confused with undergraduate fee help. This is a full fee, so there is no loan fee for it, definitely not. The bad news though is repayments. You do have to pay it back. They begin at 50K. Need to check that. That does change regularly, and it's 4% up to a maximum of 8%. How do you get in? Well, it used to be a real hurdle when we first started way back in 2003, especially someone without a bachelor's degree. And then we had to look at the applicants, some superstars applying who didn't have a bachelor's degree, and we type of gradually morphed into a much better way of doing it. So you either have a bachelor's degree or industry experience. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, and nearly half of our students don't, or didn't complete them. We have a graduate certificate pathway, which, as you'll see, is at least as good as direct entry into the Masters. A graduate certificate, for instance, if you're doing project management, it'd be a graduate certificate in project management or cybersecurity. You study 4 subjects out of the Masters. And the great news is, providing you pass the 4 subjects, you get full credit into the Masters. So I remember I said up to 12 subjects, depending on how much credit. You would do these 4 subjects and you'd have 8, maximum of 8 to go. So no extra study, and you actually end up with 2 qualifications instead of 1. So you finish a graduate certificate in a couple of sessions because it's 2 subjects, or a year, probably more common. But there's a financial advantage to doing it this way as well, because you then would become alumni, and alumni get 10% off their fee. So even if you've got a bachelor, it's probably a good idea to start with a graduate certificate, get your grad cert, and then continue on to your Masters. Or if you feel like taking a break, take your grad cert and come back and get credit into your Masters later on. We'll be here waiting for you, I can assure you. So it's only 4 subjects out of the 12 for the Masters. Credit, I strongly suggest you do this even if you don't think you're up for credit. Go up on the IT Masters website and fill out the Am I eligible form. It'll confirm you're eligible to do a Masters or the grad cert, but it also have a look at whether there's any credit that you might be applicable for. And then Jenny from IT Masters will ring you and have a talk to you about whether what other options there are there. Not saying, I mean, it's a way to cut the cost, definitely, and cut how long it's going to take you to do your Masters. So it's well worth having a look at. We have 3 options for credit. Number 1 is industry certifications. I mentioned a couple of them on the way through. If you got Prince 2, you'd be credit, but excuse me, I had to have a cough. We cover most of the mainstream industry certifications. So providing they're rigorous ones, whether it be Cisco, Microsoft, Project Management Institute, there's a whole range of them. So definitely fill that out. I mean, it's one of the unique things about Charles Sturt is we definitely recognise certifications more than any other uni I've seen. You also, for previous academic studies, they've got to be at postgraduate level. So you might have started a Masters with someone else and didn't complete it, but got a couple of subjects. Well, providing they line up with subjects in the Masters you're interested in, 70% match, you would get credit. And they're pretty good about awarding that credit. And a third way, which is we run short courses about every 6 weeks. They're 4 weeks long, a little multi-choice exam at the end of it. If you pass 3 of them, you would be up for credit for a subject, a single subject. I suggest you have a good look at this, particularly if you're an experienced person, because it's a great way to get credit for your experience. Just go up, they're free, just go up and enroll, maybe do 3 cybersecurity ones or 3 project management ones. Their purpose is to give you a bit of a taste of what it's like to study with Charles Sturt University, so you'll get that as well. But definitely sit the little exams at the end and pick up a credit. You can apply for credit at any time before you start or any time right up to graduation. So we have a number of people studying industry certifications while they're doing typically a single subject. They would then get, providing they pass the certifications, they will get credit for them before graduation. Maximum level of credit is 50%. So 12 subjects, you can only get credit for 6. And the short course is a maximum of 1 credit. There is only 1 credit available for that. But as I said, again, go and fill that form. Take you 5 minutes. It's a great place to start. Finally, I remember I talked about what's the return on investment, or what is a uni qualification degree worth, particularly if you're sitting there and you don't have a degree already. I think a fairly valid way to look at it, the only one I've been able to find, is to have a look at what people are earning. And what we've done to do that is pulled the census data from the last census, 2016. And in the census, you've got to tell them where you work in IT, how much you're earning, and whether you've got what qualifications you've got. So that allows us to then line up the earnings in the different categories. So there's lots of different categories. So we type of group them up there into under management, which would include CIOs and supervisors, and and we put, for instance, security in with network engineers. So we didn't have hundreds of different categories, well, not hundreds. There's a lot of different categories. Interesting little thing here. If you had to pick out who's the best paid, which would it be? Looking at those 5 different areas. All right, let's have a look. You probably got it right. IT managers get the big bucks, rightly or wrongly, but that's always been the case, and it's the case in virtually all industries. Closely followed by IT project managers, high stress position, lots of demand for them. And then we've got the others spread across. I haven't broken it out there, but the big mover here is security, IT security. The SEEK numbers have just come out, and the wages for security people are exploding. It's close to 120,000 on average. I just, we'll do a release about it, but yeah, it's just rocketed up the scale. So these are 2016 numbers, don't forget. So, but there's your overall average. And then we can have a look at how much they're earning with a uni degree and no uni degree. And there is a difference, good news. And in some areas, it's quite substantial. The interesting one to me was IT managers. It's quite a large difference, and there's quite a percentage of IT managers who don't have a degree. Overall, by the way, across the whole industry, it's about 50% without a degree. So in most cases, they should race out and get a degree looking at those numbers, because the earnings over a 25-year period are quite substantial, and would certainly make a great return on investment in terms of getting your money for your degree. I mean, ours would be 30 something thousand, 3,000, 12, nearly 40,000. But if you're in, say, IT management and you don't have a degree, well, over your career, you're talking 312,000. So it's definitely a good return on investment. I find the whole thing a bit fascinating is why is there such a difference? As I say, these are proper figures. I mean, they're cross-referenced with tax, and so they're not made up numbers. Could it be because of what they learnt? We'd like to say so as a university, but I don't think that's the total reason. Some other ones are the HR filter effect. I had personal experience of this in Telstra. Went for my first exec roles, didn't get shortlisted, couldn't understand why, and finally a HR person said, well, you don't have a degree. We couldn't shortlist you. So lo and behold, I raced off and enrolled in a master's. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I'd only done a couple of subjects, and I just put in progress down the bottom, and I got my first exec role. So it did work. So there is a HR filter effect, especially in bigger companies, the big players, the Microsofts, the Ciscos do it, certainly. And then there's a third one, which maybe they're just the most motivated. It's not an easy thing this is not like going to 3 or 5 day training course. We're talking about 2 years of effort here. Yeah, maybe there's the people who finish them are more motivated, and it reflects in their wages. Okay, I might finish it up then. When can you start? Well, the next intake closes very shortly, 17th of August. So it's just next week, is it, Holly?
Week after.
Week after, Holly tells me. But I suggest if you are interested in that intake, get your application in early, even if it's partial. so we can get started. Make sure we got all your paperwork set up and get you ready. So you commence studying on the 27th of August. And then down the track, our standard intake, the next standard intake is 2nd of November. So then you would have the option of picking up extra subject or even 2 if you're really going well. So again, starting with a single foundation level subject, you can focus totally on it, extra support, get you up and running, and then and only then take on what is a full load, part-time load, which is an extra subject on top of it. Okay, thanks for listening. Holly's been typing furiously here, which means she's had lots of questions. It'll be a challenge for her to pick out. What's your bank account number, Holly? Do you take bribes or? No,
Yes.
no, she wouldn't do that, of course.
Oh, yeah, no, I was joking.
Yes, she's joking, of course. Yeah, so she's going to pick the wine winner. So we'll leave this open for 10 minutes. And if you've got any others, and of course, just you can always email IT Masters or lo and behold, pick up the telephone and call us. We do get an occasional call these days and have a talk about your studies or anything about the Masters. Thanks for listening and good luck with whatever you do with your career. Thanks.